are forces around us that we can feel, hear, and see, but to some, there is no explanation as to why. This podcast discusses everything that we, as a society, are taught to doubt. We interview our science and data-driven co-host to see if we can shift his perspective and get him to embrace the alchemist within. Thousands of years ago, the healing art of acupuncture surfaced. Is it just a placebo effect? Or is this alternative medicine truly powerful? Let's find out. Hello and welcome back to The Alchemist and the Academic. I am your host, Rebecca Finale, your alchemist, and I am here with Kurt Braddock, our academic.
And pincushion,
yes,
as of this afternoon.
So we are here for the part 2 of our acupuncture episode. We are going to talk to Kurt about his recent experience of getting acupuncture.
And by recent, we mean, what, 3 hours?
3 hours ago.
3 hours ago? Yeah, I mean, I've had acupuncture before. Becca's given me acupuncture before, but it's been a minute. It has. A couple years. But this is, I think, the first one where there's like a direct action on me, and it's like testing my response to it.
Yes.
And I had a response.
You did.
I had a responst.
So.
But I need you to interpret the response that I had.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to be doing this episode. Kurt will be telling us about what he experienced, and I will be interpreting what it means in terms of Chinese medicine and acupuncture theory. And yeah.
But first,
very excited. So to begin,
we got to begin with this because I went a little overboard.
Yeah.
Okay, so Becca's drinking, surprise.
Vodka. Wait, this is a black cherry soda water.
Okay.
With extra lemon.
Okay. And I have what started out, it was just going to be coffee and Jameson, and it turned into coffee, Swiss Miss, a little of dark chocolate, homemade whipped cream, thanks to Becca, who used to be a barkeep and knew how to make it. And then screwball, so peanut butter whiskey. So it turned into something else that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, cheers.
Cheers.
That is a holiday treat. It's not the holiday anymore, but wait, are we anywhere near any kind of Wiccan holidays? What are we near?
Tomorrow's Imbolc.
All right, happy Imbolc.
Happy Imbolc.
Is that going to be our next episode?
No.
Oh, that'll be next series, right?
I didn't have that on the list, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, happy Imbolc.
Yeah, happy Imbolc, which is, it's the halfway point between winter and spring, and we honor Bridget, the Celtic goddess, who we talked about on our deities episode last week.
That's right.
And it's welcoming in the spring. All right, so let's start off, Kurt. Well, we'll set the scene. So,
yes.
Whenever anyone comes in for an acupuncture treatment, I ask them, obviously, why they are coming in. I ask questions pertaining to that issue. I ask questions about all of the other systems that are going on in the body. And then I look at their tongue and I feel their pulse. All of this gives me my acupuncture diagnosis, which then I pick acupuncture points based off of that.
Right. And you said to me that one side of my tongue looked dry, which is weird.
Yes. So the tongue is broken up into different areas.
Okay.
And they correspond to different organs. So you had, and I will say, Kurt is giving us permission to talk about all of this.
Yeah. We don't have any HIPAA obligations.
So the middle part of the tongue corresponds to the stomach and spleen, which is the digestive system in Chinese medicine, also in Western. So the stomach area of your tongue was dry and it had cracks. So that usually is indicative of heat in the stomach, which can manifest as acid reflux.
Okay.
Some sort of indigestion, feeling heat in the middle of the body. It can be a number of things. But then you also had the sides of your tongue were red compared to the overall color.
Okay.
And that corresponds to the liver.
Okay.
So there's some heat in the liver.
Could that have been from 2 beers that I had last night? Because I did have 2 beers last night.
I mean, it could.
Sorry, liver.
But I asked how you had been sleeping, because usually when the liver is a little upset, the liver, every major organ has a spirit attached to it. So the liver is the hun. And I want to say, I don't know if we talked about this in the first acupuncture episode, but when the hun is not settled, it goes off in the middle of the night. So that equates to restless sleep.
Oh, so it made sense that I said, yeah, I wasn't sleeping well.
Yes.
And it was like, it is restless too. Like, it manifests for my sleep as when I'm trying to fall asleep, I just can't. And it's not a matter of getting comfortable. Like, I'll lay there for a while and then I just won't feel right. So I'll roll to my other side, and I'll do that several times where I finally doze off.
Yeah. And what I also love about anytime treating insomnia, there's a difference between if you have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. A lot of people struggle with both. So just by looking at your tongue, I could ask those questions just to confirm if possibly that's what was going on.
Right.
Your pulse also is what we call wiry, which is a bowstring pulse. It's like I wish listeners can't see what I'm doing with my hands, but it's like a bowstring. They said it like comes up, and it's when I'm putting my fingertips on the area to feel the pulse is coming up and meeting it, and it feels like you're plucking a rubber band almost.
Okay.
So that's called wiry, and that's also either indicative of pain or something to do with the liver.
Okay.
So we treated your liver today, and also because your tongue was red, that indicates heat, and because it was dry, also there's some sort of heat, lack of fluids. So we nourished some fluids.
Okay.
And Kurt's chief complaint, which the main reason why he wanted acupuncture today, or what he wanted the goal to be, is to help relax.
As I open the bottle of Screwball and pour more into my glass. Yeah, I need to relax. 1 second. I wonder if that went through. Right. I hope it did. I hope people can hear this.
Don't we all? So then I also add in points that are like the indication of that point is specific to helping what we say is calm the shen.
Okay.
Which is relax.
Okay. So, I mean, I don't even know where to start with my experience of it. Like, what would be the logical place to begin discussing the experience? Start
with if you felt anything while you were laying with the needles. Like, did you feel any sensations? Did you feel relaxed? Did you feel agitated?
Okay, so I'll start generally, I guess.
Okay.
I noticed generally I could feel some of the needles more than others. Like, it hurt to get the needles more than others.
Yes.
And it like we talked about before, it didn't hurt, but it just feels like a little tiny pinch. Whereas some of them, you don't feel them at all.
Right.
All along the left side of my body, and tell me if I miss any, you put acupuncture needles in my ankle, knee, the spot between my thumb and my forefinger, on both sides, center of my chest, stomach, or like solar plexus, ear, top of the ear, and bottom of the ear, right?
Just top.
Just top. And then one on, it wasn't the third eye, it was up higher than that.
Right.
Is that all of them? Did I miss any?
You had 2 on the top of your feet.
Top of my feet. Okay. So, but you had one on each side for each one of those spots. Like if you had, except for the one on my head.
And the one in the center of your chest.
And the one in the center of my chest. And the solar plexus.
Stomach,
yeah. But everywhere else there was a pair of them.
Always bilateral.
Yeah. So I noticed that when the needles went in, I felt every one on my right side, didn't feel any on my left side. On my left side, I didn't feel shit. Like it was just like, I heard like a little like, and I didn't even realize the needle went in. But on the right side, I could feel like it stung. The one that stung the most, honestly, was probably the top of my ear. And I could still feel heat in the top of my ear 3 hours later. And the one on my knee, my right knee, hurt going in. The one between my forefinger and my thumb didn't hurt going in, but I shifted my weight just a little and got a serious ache right there. Yeah. Like it ached so much. I was like, it like almost scared me and like tensed me up. But I'll say overall, I was very relaxed. Like we had on, I put on High Lung, and then we put on the
Devi prayer.
The Devi prayer. But those were both put good vibes in the room, I think. It was actually in this room, in the basement, where we did it, because this is kind of like my space of peace, even though it's a mess right now. But yeah, the thing I noticed most from like a bird's eye view is that the right side felt more tense, felt more pain on my right side, didn't feel anything on my left.
That's pretty common. Whenever you can feel it more on one side than the other, that's indicative that you have more chi there, right? You can feel it more, so you have more sensation. Also, whenever you feel like a zing or that ache, that's called de chi, which we did discuss in the first episode, which that's the purpose. We want to get that sensation, but the way that I needle, it's not to get that sensation at every single point, because that can be really uncomfortable.
Okay.
But whenever you have a significant energetic block and then the needle goes in, that sensation you're feeling is the chi being released.
Okay.
So that it's flowing how it's supposed to.
Okay. So yeah, and it was interesting, like the forefinger one, on that meaty spot between your forefinger and your thumb, I didn't feel that going in, so I didn't expect anything, but I was thinking, because my hands were originally crossed across my stomach, and I didn't want them to be crossed. I wanted them to be separate, and I pulled them separate a little bit. And this one, it was like it felt like the tiniest Charlie horse ever. I was like, "Ow!"
And that's one of the heavy hitters. That's the command point of the entire face. That point also works with the two of the ones that I put in your feet, which it's like the on button. Oh, okay. So it helps everything move. It's called, the combination of those 2 points is called 4 gates. Okay. Because we do it bilaterally. Okay. I did say it's always bilateral, but it's not. We do a lot of things that are just one-sided. But if you pick a point that you want to do, generally you needle it bilaterally. Okay. The points on the middle of like the abdomen and the top of your head, those are called the governing and conception vessels.
Can I ask a quick question? Yeah. Were they aligned with? I always see like pictures of like the chakras down the center, and I guess the top of the head right here is almost like the third eye, but not really, right? The one where the needle went?
That's halfway between the crown and the third eye.
Okay, and then I know there's one right in the center of your chest, right? There's
the heart.
The heart, and then the solar, it's called the solar plexus, right? This right here, the
stomach
chakra?
One that we did.
Right, yeah. But they're aligned with those chakras, right?
They are. I don't think that was the original intention, but whenever I do Reiki or I do any sort of just sensing the energy of the patient, if they want to do energy healing in addition to acupuncture, which we did kind of today, if I feel that there is a block around the solar plexus, I'll do the acupuncture point that is the closest to that location. Okay. The purpose of the ones that we did today, the one that's halfway between the crown and the third eye chakra, that's an overall calming point on the governing vessel. Okay. And so the governing and conception vessel, they are only it's not bilateral. They run on the front of the body and the back of the body. It's like a continuous loop. So
it's almost like, if you think of the body like a globe, it's almost like the lateral is like almost the way the latitudes run. Right. And then you got the longitudes this way, but it only runs along the prime meridian. Yes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, and when you do Qigong, you picture between the do and the run like a circle of gold energy just constantly going. But the one that we did on the chest, that because we were doing stress reduction, and I asked you how your anxiety physically manifests, and you said you feel it in your chest. So that point is actually called the Sea of Qi. Okay. And it opens up your entire chest. Okay. And it's really good for anxiety.
I feel cooler. Like I feel my temperature is lower. Yes. Than it was before.
We did a few heat releasing points. Okay. Because you had red on your tongue and it was dry. Okay. And we did a couple points to generate fluid.
Okay. I mean, I can definitely feel cooler. I feel more relaxed. I don't know if I'm placebo affecting it, but it doesn't feel like it. It definitely doesn't feel like it. I also said that when I have anxiety, I don't have super anxiety right now. It's just Becca asked me, she's like, what do you want to work on? I don't have anything really going. I have a couple of muscle spasms here and there, but I mean, that's just from things like working out and such. But I said anxiety, because I always like to minimize my anxiety. And I mentioned, my chest, but also I mentioned my throat and the backs of my eyes too. Are there points where you can deal with anxiety in those spots too?
Yes. So the liver, so the major organs, they do open up to other organs on the face, and the liver goes to the eyes.
Okay.
So when you said that your anxiety also manifests behind your eyes, and then I saw the heat on your tongue that's in the liver, I did a point that takes the heat out of the liver.
Okay.
So it won't manifest from behind your eyes. And then with the throat, what I love in Chinese medicine is we have different patterns for things. Like when we go in to like a Western doctor, okay, anxiety, their solution, besides like talk therapy, it's going to be an SSRI, like some sort of mood stabilizer, right? In Chinese medicine, we actually have a pattern that is for what we call plum pit qi.
Okay.
And it's when you feel that like ball in your throat, like you're about to cry, or I love the textbooks. They would describe it as feeling like a piece of meat is stuck in your throat and you can't swallow to get it to go away.
That's gross, but it makes sense. So for me, the way it's interesting, the way it manifests for me, my chest gets tight, but I mean, it's not like tight the way most people describe it. A lot of people say, "Oh, I can't breathe." I never have that. It mostly manifests when I'm super anxious, like I'm close to a panic attack. It does have that almost crying feeling, and it feels like a lump in my throat, but it's more that it closes. Yeah. And then I feel heat behind my eyes. Like I want to cry, but I'm not going to.
So whenever the qi gets stuck there, right, and we say plum pit qi, why I asked about indigestion or heartburn, because your stomach area of your tongue being dry, and so there's some sort of heat. Each meridian has a direction of qi flow, and the stomach qi is supposed to go down when it's
to your butthole. I'm not even joking. Like, is it meant to? Is it for digestion? Like,
well, yes, but the stomach meridian itself, it starts on the face and it goes down to the feet. Okay. So the flow is downward.
I didn't mean to be flippant. I'm serious. Like, I'm like, because I mean, you said like the qi often it whatever, and forgive me if I'm getting the nomenclature completely wrong, but like you said that the qi works to help the body systems work. So I figured if it goes from your face to your stomach and down, I'm like, well, that's the digestive system. Exactly. You put food in your face, it goes in your stomach, and then out your butt's hole.
And so out the end. So with the stomach qi, when it's rebellious stomach qi, which is a term we use, and that's whenever qi is going up. So because your stomach is it has heat in it, it's a little dry, like we talked about from your tongue, the stomach is going up, it's counterflow, rebellious qi. So that's why you're getting that sensation in your throat. And
come to think of it, when I am anxious, I do feel almost like acid reflux-ish. Yeah. Or it almost feels like indigestion, like I feel like I burp more. Yeah. I know what you're talking about with respect to that. What would you do for something like depression, where I feel depression more in my head, excuse me, in the top of my head and in my stomach. That's where I feel depression more often. And again, back of my eyes.
Right. So for that, we would still do a lot of the same points because it's based off of your tongue and pulse. So that is your essentially like genetic makeup. That's what you have going on right now. Okay. So that's why acupuncture treats the entirety of the person, mind, body, and spirit, because it does not matter what you walk in with. Your tongue and your pulse, in addition to the intake, are telling me the root pattern of what's going on. Okay. And then obviously there are branches, root versus branch. Root is like the cause. Branch is a manifestation of what's going on. So we would treat your tongue and pulse. But then for depression, so like today we added in points that were calming and like opened up the different areas that your anxiety manifests, like where the qi gets stuck. For depression, we would want to lift you up, right? Because depression, you're down. Yeah. So I would do more in the scalp to help raise what we call the clear yang, which is we have yin and yang. That's the two main basic principles of Chinese medicine. Everything boils down to yin and yang, and they're constantly transforming into each other. And there's, like you've seen the symbol, there's a little piece of each in the other. So with the yang, it's supposed to
Yang is the black side, right?
No.
It's the white side.
It's the white.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
It's the light, and it's bright, and you want to have that.
Oh, because you're lifting it up. The yang. Okay, gotcha.
You want that clear yang. Now there are patterns where there's too much yang going to the head. Like that's not good. But
if you're manic depressive is the wrong word anymore. Type 2, whatever, not diabetic, but
bipolar.
Bipolar, yeah. Type 2 bipolar is manic depression, right? So it's too much, that manic episode.
Yeah, it's like too much heat going up. But I mean, that's just one possible pattern. It could be a number of things,
serotonin
which
syndrome. Becca just made a face at me. So serotonin syndrome is a thing that happens, like, and this was where kind of Western medicine, I think Chinese medicine probably, they don't clash. It's just that you don't OD, but you can take too much of an SSRI or combine it with something else to the point that you're getting too much serotonin. And I forget what exactly happens, but I mean, it gives you the shakes, and it can really mess with your nervous system.
Yeah.
Like if you get serotonin syndrome. So that's why people are very careful with like SSRI dosing and SSRI combination with other things, because you can get serotonin syndrome. And that, I mean, serotonin is generally thought of as a positive, I think serotonin's a neurotransmitter, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, like it's a positive one. It makes you feel good, but you can get too much of it. Kind of the same way, like dopamine. Dopamine is the center of most addiction because people chase the dopamine.
Right.
And if you get too much of it, then you end up in a point where you can't reach that level of dopamine again. So you chase it, and then you end up with addiction to benzodiazepines and all these other things.
I wonder if you get serotonin syndrome if you take too much like ecstasy or Molly.
That can do it too, yeah. So ecstasy and Molly, if you combine those with SSRIs, I did read that if you are on SSRIs, you want to stay on a low dose of like mushrooms, because mushrooms, depending on the dose you're on, you can either just kind of feel opened up, or you can take what's like called a heroic dose, and you just have full mind-body dissociation.
Oh, God.
Yeah. But I mean, people are very careful about those sorts of things too.
Yeah.
But the main things that these things mess with in your head that give you a good mood or a bad mood are dopamine, serotonin, GABA, I think is one, and I forget the glutamate. I think glutamate's the last one. So what this boils down to is that if those are out of whack, most people think that they can only get out of whack if you don't have enough or your body's not processing it right.
No.
But you can have too much. And if you have too much, it can become a real problem.
I actually have serotonin, dopamine, and GABA tattooed on my arm.
Oh, the chemical formula, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. That's my favorite tattoo that you have.
And then I have epinephrine, norepinephrine, and acetylcholine.
Those they're not feel-good chemicals, are they? They're kind of like go.
Acetylcholine's essential for muscle function.
Okay.
So I basically did the top 6 that I learned in my, I think it was actually my psychopharmacology class that I learned about.
It is the dorkiest and coolest tattoo. Like, it's so cool. I think you probably have the strongest knowledge of chemistry of anybody I know.
I loved general chemistry, and when I tell you I was doing the homework for everyone in my dorm room, I was obsessed. Organic chemistry, not so much. The organic chemistry lab, or Orgo 2 lab that I had to take was fucking grueling. I spent like 10 hours in the library each week just doing my pre-lab.
I thought organic chemistry was kind of boring because everything is based around carbon, right? Inorganic?
I wouldn't even say I mean, because there's a bunch of main like molecules that we use, but it's a bunch of methyl groups basically.
Yeah.
And then building on top of that.
But in regular general chem, you get to say, oh, beryllium mixes with this and I got to balance this equation. It was so much fun. I like doing that.
Oh, I loved balancing those equations.
Chemistry was my favorite. Chemistry and not physics. I took chemistry in college or in high school, and then I took like chemistry 2 in college, and then I also took, maybe it was physics, but I took a physics in college, and it got me. That's what got me to geek out about like space and stars and everything like that. And if I could go back and do it again, that's the route that I would go. I would try to go into astrophysics.
I loved physics too. I think I always remember 9.81 is a unit for gravity.
Isn't that Avogadro's number? No,
that's mole.
That's
mole.
Right? No, the Avogadro's number is 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd power or something like that.
Isn't that a mole?
I think it is. That's Avogadro's number.
We had mole day. We made shirts. I could be totally butchering.
I know you're right. 9.81 meters per second squared.
Yeah,
that's gravity. Yeah. Oh man, that took me back. Holy shit.
Total science nerd. I had someone look at my molecules on my arm and they were like, "Why do you have hoe tattooed on your arm?" And I was like, "Get out of my face."
Yeah, you're fucking stupid. Take that shit elsewhere. I hate to admit it, we're gonna quick segue. I was talking shit about Screwball earlier today. This is delicious.
It is not.
It is. It's delicious to podcast over. I mean, it's not. It's not Lafroig 10. Well, Lafroig 10 is fine. It's not Lafroig 25, which is up there. It's not my favorite whiskey, but it's doing the trick.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get back to the acupuncture experience. So the thing that I'm actually really curious about, and we talked about it briefly, was the ear needle. So you put a needle in the top of my ear, where like a hipster would have their ear pierced. And number one, in my right ear, I felt it pretty heavy. Like I felt it sting when it went in. And I never stopped feeling it over the course of the treatment.
Yeah.
So it stung when you took it out. And I could still feel like heat in the top of my ear. And you said that the top of your ear is actually a pretty important point. Yeah.
So there's probably, I want to say there might be like over 300 points in the ear. Could be totally wrong. But the ear is a microcosm of the entire body. So if you see pictures of auricular acupuncture, the entire body is in the ear. It looks like a fetus almost.
Okay.
So there are points that correspond to every area physically on the body, to the organs internally, to the brain. But the point that we did on you is called ear shen men.
Okay.
And it is an overall calming point.
So 300 points in the ear is what you said.
I think there could be more.
So are really skilled acupuncturists really good at picking those individual spots out all over the ear? Like could they figure out where to put a needle in 0.178 versus 0.216 or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. That's intense. Could you do that?
No, probably not.
I bet you could get close.
Well, obviously, yes, close, but because there's so many, there's a protocol that we do a lot. It's called NADA, N-A-D-A. And the school that I went to, we did off-site clinics, and our clinic director was just so passionate about it, and she organized where we got to go to a veterans clinic, or a VMC, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And we did free auricular acupuncture. We did this NADA protocol on homeless veterans, and then we also did it on women that were detoxing.
Oh.
And because it's 5 points, and it has such a profound effect on the nervous system, and it helps calm everything down. It helps suppress cravings, like whenever you're going through withdrawals like that. And especially the homeless veterans, a lot of them were
heroin addicted,
struggling with addiction or had severe mental health because they don't do shit for our veterans.
No. And the VA just got gutted.
Yeah.
Just in case you want to know.
Great.
Yeah. Which is why I needed, not just the VA, which is why I needed some calming acupuncture.
Yeah. I need to douse myself.
So that's why I did acupuncture, and now I'm on my second and a half drink.
We won't go down that road. We want to keep the calm. But,
yeah, we'll keep the calm. My liver is yelling at me, but it's fine.
Yeah. So I loved doing that and seeing the effect that it had on those people. And so I probably do that. So ear shen men, the point we did on you, is one of the 5 points in the NADA protocol.
Okay.
And I do that point on every single one of my patients.
Yeah, I remember you did it to me before too. Yeah. And that's what surprised me is the first time you did it to me. This is a year and a half, 2 years ago. No, even more than that, because I didn't have my pool table yet.
I think it was
3 or 4 years ago.
I think it was 2020.
Yeah, it would have been because we had just moved in. And that's how I think of it, is that in my room upstairs in the parlor, I have a pretty nice pool table, I'm not ashamed to say. But before I had that, it was just kind of wide open. And that's where we put the acupuncture table. Yeah. So it would have been 3 or 4 years ago. But what's interesting is that at that time when you gave me acupuncture then, I was having panic attacks. But I didn't feel it in my right ear then. This time I did. Which makes me wonder if anxiety and panic don't manifest like they do with panic attacks. Are you more prone to feeling the prick of the needles, because it's more like I'm keeping it in
right.
than it would manifest. And don't get me wrong, I am so happy that I don't have panic attacks.
Yes.
Like I would rather my ear hurt than have panic attacks. Yeah. But I wonder if that has something to do with like panic attacks are a way of manifesting that anxiety.
There is an element to the actual practitioner too, like how I needle. So, I've been doing it for 5 years now, so I feel like I do needle the same way, but it could have been like the angle that I put it at maybe felt a little more than it would have been on the other side, so sure. There is that factor to it as well, but because you still feel like the needle is in there, so that happens a lot whenever you get that chi sensation. It can feel like the needle's still in there after it's out for up to 24 hours.
It doesn't feel like the needle's still in there, but it feels like it does. Like, do you ever drink too much? And it's not that, because I felt this before, like I poured my glass, but do you ever drink too much and your ears just get hot? Like no. They get hot. My ears get hot when I drink. They turn super red. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
But it's only on the right side. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's only on the right side that I feel it.
Well, that sensation, like where you feel the warmth kind of like going through and like moving, that's the chi.
That was another thing I wanted to mention too. With the knee, I felt it wasn't a throb. It was more of a pulse around my knee. After a couple minutes, like maybe 10 minutes in, I start to feel. I don't know how to explain it other than it felt like a heartbeat in my knee. Yeah. What was that?
That point is stomach 36, and it translates as leg 3 mile. So it's, if there's one point that they say that will give you longevity, and if there's only one point that you could ever do, a lot of the techs and professionals and who've been doing this for forever, they always say stomach 36 because it helps with longevity, your immune system, and that's because it is one of the best points to boost chi and blood.
Oh, okay.
And those are two obviously vital, 2 of the 4 things in Chinese medicine that you need.
Yeah.
So there's chi, blood, yin, and yang.
Okay.
So by boosting chi and blood, you're just boosting your entire system, increasing longevity. So, but for you specifically, we did it because we talked about the redness on your tongue, the dry. So we want to nourish fluids, blood being one of them. And also we want to move your chi a little bit, because whenever the chi gets stuck, that's how it manifests, like where you say you feel it physically in your chest or, stuff like that. So it's such a good point. I do it on a lot of people as well, or a lot of patients of mine, but also because it's called leg 3 mile, there's a spirit part to it as well. There's a spirit to every point. Okay. And it's helping you like go the distance.
Like the spirit part, is that a spirit attached to me, or is it like an individual, like we talked about gods and goddesses last week? Like, is there like a little god that's attached to like stomach 36? 36. Stomach 36, that's like once it gets a needle, it's like, all right, game time, boys, and he jumps in.
You could think of it that way. It's the spirit of the point.
Okay. So everybody has their own individual little spirit. It's not like a deity. It's that there's a spirit in my body and stomach 36 that comes to life when it's punctured.
So essentially, yes.
Okay.
So that point,
I know that's like that's the dumb version, but I'm also dumb when it comes to this.
Well, no, not that we have all these little gods in these acupuncture points.
That's very disappointing. I like the idea that they're little. Remember the Doozers from Fraggle Rock?
No.
All right, so Fraggle Rock had Doozers, which were they're essentially little Muppets that live in a cave. Yeah. And they always build little things, like they build, they build Tinker Toys, essentially. Yeah. But they're little tiny Muppets. So I like the idea that if you put an acupuncture in, a little Doozer pops out and is like, all right, I'm going to fix this spot for you. That's what Doozers like to do, and building is the Doozer way to go. 2, 3, 4, 'cause every day the world is new. There's dreams to pay attention to, and building is the surest way we know. 2, 3, 4. Well, I mean, if that's how you picture the spirit of that point, by all means. This might be where our age difference actually matters, because you've never seen Fraggle Rock, have you? No. Oh my God, you love it. Yeah, each point, it has like an indication of what it does for the system, the chi, all the meridians, but then there's also a spirit of each point. Okay.
So you can use them for the spirit function as well.
All right, so this all makes sense to me as to if you look at it from an Eastern medicine lens, it makes sense as to how acupuncture works. How would you use acupuncture in conjunction with Western medicine? Because you would never, I'm guessing, advocate for somebody like if they had a serious medical condition like cancer or something just to get acupuncture. You tell them to go to the doctor.
Well, yes. But I think we might have mentioned that the last time too. So they work very well together.
Right.
I always encourage that. Obviously there's some things like if you have, strep throat or like some sort of bacterial infection, you need antibiotics, Yes, we have herbs, which you could take to be like as preventative. Or if at the first sign of feeling like a sore throat or something like that.
There is evidence for that, not in terms of, not that I've seen in terms of the herbs, but I have seen that there are some minerals that you can take right when you first start getting sick, and it minimizes how long you're sick. Like if you're looking at Western medicine, there is evidence to show that if you immediately, once you start feeling sick, take a bunch of zinc, that it reduces the length of time that you're sick. So it would follow that there are other kinds of herbs and compounds that would do the same thing.
And there's there's homeopathy, which is another like holistic therapy, and it's like if there's for example, there's a brand called It's a homeopathic brand, and they have stuff with zinc and everything in it, and it helps. It's a specific blend to help the severity and the duration of something, like a cold. But the Chinese medicine, like the Chinese herbs, I prefer them because I've done both, but I think the Chinese herbs are actually more effective. I don't know. I don't want to say that they're more potent because I don't know. But they've definitely been more effective for me. So the second I feel like a sore throat, I'll take this one formula in capsule form. It's called Cold Quell. And I take 2-3 times a day for 48 hours. And it won't turn into anything.
Really?
It's amazing. Now, if it does turn into something, then I'm like, okay, I have to actually get antibiotics. Right. But for something like cancer where I'm not going to say that acupuncture or herbs or a combination could help get rid of cancer. But what it can do is help the side effects that you feel from chemo and radiation and just help your overall quality of life.
Well, it can also be preventative. Like, I mean, there's peer-reviewed studies that show that things as simple as white and green tea, if you drink that more than coffee, that you're less likely to get any kind of cancer relative to somebody who doesn't because of the antioxidant properties of those teas.
And the two main factors of disease or cause of disease in Chinese medicine is diet and emotion. And that was one of the reasons why I fell in love with the medicine, because all the shit that we put in our body and the quality of food that we have here, like we're bound to get something. And then when we internalize all these emotions and, it's, there's stigmas about talking about it, like everything just manifests. Yeah. So this is one way that you can help just overall prevention of things and longevity of life. Yeah.
I mean, there is some evidence too to show that certain diets and certain lifestyles lead to longevity. I think the Japanese live the longest on the planet. Partially because of their diet, partially because of the way they live their lives. Right. Like a lot of them are very spiritually heavy. I don't know how much they dive into the Eastern medicine stuff as China does, but
they do.
They do, they? Quite a bit. I mean, I imagine there's quite a bit in Shinto. I'm not sure. I don't want to speak to that, but I'm sure that people who are Shinto in Japan probably adhere to quite a bit of that kind of approach.
Well, there's, I think I talked briefly about like Japanese style acupuncture. So it's very like in East Asia, this is their first line of defense. This is how they treat, and it's incorporated in their hospitals, which is incredible. It's just a different style in Japan versus China or Korea. Those are the three that I've seen the most of.
That's interesting because, I mean, I think of Japan as being more Western than like China, for example. Like they're more open to Western culture. So I'd be curious to see those two used in conjunction in like Japanese hospitals.
Well, when I went and studied abroad, we visited several hospitals, and there was one hospital that was specific for diseases that were really hard to cure, basically, like ALS. I saw an ALS patient, and they were doing acupuncture, moxa, which is an herb that they burn on specific points, and then also injecting bee venom.
Interesting.
Yes, but also it was so cool because the technology that they had was so advanced, and they also had, you know, all of this medical equipment. It looked like, you know, it was a legit hospital, but then on the other side, they had a whole herb room, and they had these giant kettles. So the doctor could write you an herbal formula.
Yeah.
They would send it in. They would actually boil it and make it a tea for you, so you didn't have to do it at home. And it would pump it out in these little vacuum sealed pouches. It was amazing.
That's pretty cool. Well, I mean, also, were the formulas they were making, I assume that was for side effects of things, like to improve quality of life, because they're not curing ALS. If you have ALS.
No. But that's their standard treatment. So like I keep saying, like, no matter what you come in with, it's based off of your tongue and pulse.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you have a Western diagnosis, you know, they're going to treat you through that lens of diagnosis.
Got it. Okay. I wanted to make sure you weren't saying, they're curing ALS.
No.
I was going to say that's not the
But they do like experimentation in that hospital.
And I think that's useful. That's the essence of science, is experimentation. Yeah. Is I obviously am more of a Western medicine guy, but I do think that there is something to Eastern medicine and herbs as a supplement to it. And I think that the best way to move forward in terms of testing some of these medicines is look at some of the interactions between Western medicine and Eastern medicine, see what are best, if not for curing, then improving quality of life for people. Because there's something to be said for the antioxidant properties of some of these herbs and some of the things that people are imbibing there, because that they live longer than we do. They just live longer than we do. And I'm talking like in the 90s, like regularly people there live in the 90s, and we're dying at 75, 77.
Or in the 60s, yeah. I've seen what I do love. So an example of Western and Eastern like working together. I talked about fertility.
Sure.
But what I have seen with acupuncture and herbs, what they can do that I have not seen Western could do. I've had patients who have a low AMH level.
What's AMH?
Which that basically gives you a number to let you know what your ovarian reserve is. Like, how many eggs do you have left?
Oh, okay, gotcha.
You know, it kind of gives you like a roundabout of how long you have to have kids, right?
Sure.
So I have seen where patients come in with a low AMH. I don't know of anything in Western medicine, at least with the fertility clinics that I've worked in conjunction with. I don't know of anything that they can give to, you know, boost your AMH, because we're born with the amount of eggs.
Well, I'll also say Western fertility clinics suck. Like I mean, the ones that I've had experience with, and my wife and I have had experience with, they suck. Like they approach it from a perspective of, number one, explicitly Western medicine, which I'm not opposed to, obviously, but also they don't treat the patient, they treat the ovary, which on one hand I get why they do it. On the other hand, like, people that are coming in are hurt emotionally and physically, and they need to be treated holistically. Like, the whole of the person needs to be treated. So I think fertility especially is one of those places where a combination of both would be really, really useful.
Yeah. Well, really it's such an emotionally charged subject.
Sure.
So I can't tell you how many of my fertility patients have come in, and, you know, the bedside manner at the fertility clinics are just not there. God awful. And I can at least help provide a safe space for that and let them know, like, promote, you know, positive self-talk instead of negative, because when they say like geriatric pregnancy and like
when you're 33 or something
35,
like that.
it's insane. So I do love working, you know, in tandem with it, because I feel like the acupuncture really helps like lower cortisol levels, first of all.
And I'll say too, like, there's something associated with acupuncture and like the herbs that we've talked about, where what you would see, or at least again my experience in fertility clinics, is you're treated as a customer to be sold to, which is gross. Like, that's the biggest thing that I've encountered, is like in a lot of Western fertility clinics, they try to almost upsell you on certain services, which is absolutely gross. Because, I mean, giving birth is a very spiritual thing. I assume. I've never given birth. But I assume it's a very spiritual thing. And it needs to be approached spiritually in addition to medically.
Yes.
Because it's a very special thing.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite things to treat and just to see. But we have formulas that help, boost the quality of eggs.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, there's a lot of things that I think Eastern medicine can do that Western can't, because it's treating the root. You walk in and we're getting your specifically tailored diagnosis based off of your tongue and pulse, also helping with symptoms, but we're not suppressing them with a medication.
Mm-hmm.
It's treating you inside out, and it incorporates the spirit component of it. So that's why I fell in love with it.
That actually begs a question, if I can ask.
Yeah.
So I am on I've been medicated with SSRIs
mm-hmm.
for 14 years now. 14 years I've been on an SSRI, and I'll be on an SSRI or something for the rest of my life. Esketamine has been an absolute game changer for me. It's mm-hmm. been an absolute fantastic supplement, and we're going to have an episode on that coming up. But it begs the question in terms of Eastern medicine, does my being on an SSRI block me from experiencing things with acupuncture or Eastern medicine? No, it doesn't. It's because there are some there. I know that there are certain things where you need to be open in certain ways to experience the benefits of Eastern medicine or acupuncture. Mm-hmm. And SSRIs and related medicines are so prescriptive that it could be seen as closing things off, but they don't block one another.
No. So, I mean, there are certain medications, like if you're on a beta blocker, that's going to make your pulse a little slow.
Yeah. Well, actually, let me take a step back really quickly.
Okay.
Like, just because we've been talking about SSRIs, like everybody knows what they are, and there might be people who don't know what they are.
Okay.
So SSRI is called a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. What that is, the reason people with depression and anxiety take it is because the synapses in your brain don't pass serotonin properly. So an SSRI blocks the serotonin from going back into the same synapse, so it communicates, what's it called, a axon? Mm-hmm. Like in between the axons of the synapse, it allows serotonin to go across in the proper way. But it does prescriptively, it blocks your synapses from reuptaking the serotonin, and it allows the serotonin to go across the synapses better. But that doesn't affect the efficacy of acupuncture or what you've talked about.
No, because you want to be in the purpose of the SSRI is to have you be more even keeled, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's helping buffer the anxiety and panic and depression and all of that. So you want to be in that state when you receive acupuncture. Yes, you could be, I've had acupuncture where I've been mid-panic attack and it has helped, but the goal is to get you into your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest. So if you come in and you have a better chance of getting to that because you are on an SSRI, like that's not going to inhibit anything, but certain medications like the beta blocker, that makes your pulse feel slow.
Okay.
And in or East Asian medicine, if you have a slow pulse, it equates to cold somewhere in the body. So as a practitioner, you just have to know about these medications and what they do.
Is that the same with benzodiazepines, like a Xanax or an Ativan or something like that? So those benzodiazepines, again, I don't want to assume anybody knows what we're talking about. Those are used. I look at those as almost like the fire axe of the mental health industry. So I have in my bag, I have 30 benzodiazepines, Ativan specifically, in case I have panic. I take it everywhere I go, just in case the shit hits the fan somewhere for whatever reason. I haven't taken one in a year and a half, 2 years, but I have them as a safety valve in case I need it. But some people take like one Ativan a day.
Yeah.
And that is meant to slow down your heart rate. It deliberately, it suppresses your nervous system. So the physical characteristics or the physical symptoms of anxiety don't manifest.
Right.
Would that block anything?
No, because it's not going to slow your heart rate down as much as a beta blocker would.
I've never done a beta blocker. I never had a beta blocker.
So like an example is propranolol. So anything with an OL on the end of it on the medication. So it's like I was actually prescribed propranolol because it was non-narcotic, because I don't like to do, I've never will try any of those because of the history of addiction in my family.
A narcotic?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it slows your heart rate. That's what the beta blocker does. And so whenever you get panic attacks, I get my heart pounding out of my chest. So it's something I could take to help calm that down. Yeah. So that's going to really slow your heart rate. Mm-hmm. I've never done benzodiazepines. I know that like those,
they're lovely if you need them. Like
no thanks.
they're pretty great if you like. I mean, they do the trick. But I will say, like benzodiazepines for me anyway, like they're great for mitigating the physical elements of panic. Mm-hmm. But for me, when I'm in the midst of a panic attack, it's much more psychological. So if I take a benzodiazepine because I'm having a panic attack, the anxiety element of the panic attack goes away, but then the depression kicks in afterward because it doesn't help with depression because it suppresses your nervous system.
And those are heavy hitters. So no one's going to be coming in to get acupuncture while they're on those. I would hope not. Because that's mind altering. A beta blocker is not. It's just
I don't know. I feel like people who are on benzodiazepines might benefit from acupuncture. Because acupuncture is a non-chemical stress. It can be a stress-reducing practice, yeah? So you don't want to be under the influence of something like that while you're getting acupuncture. Just like you wouldn't want to be drunk when you're getting acupuncture. Like you want to be in a sound state of mind. Mm-hmm. And that would differ from an SSRI because it's not mind altering. Like you're not, you can still operate heavy machinery. Once you're used to it. I actually last week or the week before, my SSRI ran out and I forgot to get it refilled. So I went like a week with an SSRI.
Oh no.
I mean, it's not great. Like I had vertigo. That was the biggest thing is I get vertigo. I felt a bit disconnected. But once I started back on the SSRI, I was fine. I've come to terms with the fact I'm going to be on an SSRI until I die.
Same.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, the human brain has not evolved to the point where it can deal with the modern world.
Nope.
So a little bit of help with serotonin is good.
Yeah.
And I've kind of the culmination of my experience with acupuncture. I think acupuncture is probably the... Acupuncture is probably the practice that I am most on board with in terms of, quote, alchemy, because I don't think it's alchemy. I think there is something to be said for acupuncture. If not in terms of releasing chi and things like that, I think there is something to be said for allowing somebody to relax and have those needles in those points. Yeah. I actually think there is something to it.
Oh, there is. Yeah. And there have been many studies on it, which I love. And just looking at, like, one of my favorites was they did an EEG on patients while they were getting acupuncture, and you could just see the different areas of the brain that lit up. And so it's not a placebo.
Yeah. And that's what's always my concern is this is a placebo effect is what I'm doing because I believe in it or whatever. But at some level, who gives a shit?
Right.
Who gives a shit? But
if it works.
But you're also right in that there have been studies to show that acupuncture does have an effect. It also depends on what the acupuncture is being used for.
Yes.
Because if somebody's using it like I did earlier to relax, I will say effective.
Yeah.
I'm going to concede. This is the first time the academic is going to concede. I am feeling much calmer now than I did about 6 hours ago. Yeah. Even if my ear is fucking hot. Because it is. It's super hot. But
do you have high blood pressure? No,
I don't. No, my blood. So to give you a bit of a preview of an upcoming episode, we're going to do esketamine sometime in the next couple of weeks. So every time I go into esketamine, they have to take your blood pressure several times because esketamine spikes your blood pressure. So that's why you have to stay at the doctor's office. Also because you're tripping balls, so you have to be okay. every time I go in, the first time I get blood pressure, I want my blood pressure to be below 110/75. So I go in, I try to get below that. And they also, when I go in, they take your pulse, and my pulse is always below 60. I want to get it below 50. I want less than one beat.
Okay.
Yeah. So
well, 60 to 90 is normal, right?
I try to go below 60. I went in once and they were like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, why?" They're like, your pulse is like 61. And I was like, "Oh, I kickbox." And they were like, "Oh, okay. That's fine."
I kickbox.
Yeah. Motherfucker, I'm a yellow belt. What do you think of that?
Nice.
Yellow belt, 4 stripes.
All right, so you conceded, I think.
I do concede. I do think there is something to acupuncture. I will say the scientific side of my mind says that acupuncture by itself is not something you would want to do, but I think acupuncture in conjunction with, depending on what your problem is, I think acupuncture in conjunction with Western psychological assistance, whether it be medication or counseling, I think is useful, or acupuncture in conjunction with some physical ailment, I think is useful too. So I'm on board with acupuncture, I think.
Yeah, it's
I'm on board
incredible.
with it.
I will say, the first 2 years after I had my mental breakdown in 2019, all I did was acupuncture and herbs.
Yeah.
And I was getting 2 master's degrees and working 3 jobs.
Yeah.
So it saved my life. And that was with no Western intervention.
Yeah. Well, we're going to do... not next episode, but the episode after that, I think we're going to really get into a Western intervention. We are going to talk about my experiences with esketamine.
We are? Wasn't supposed to be on series 1.
That's going to be series 1.
Okay.
It's because I asked if you can come in and we can record, and they were like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
So we have permission, so we're going to do it while they're giving me permission.
So our series 1, we talked about in our intro episode, it's going to go a little off course because we planned on doing 12 episodes. We have now done 2 parts for witchcraft and acupuncture. We're going to add in esketamine. So it's a little off course, but,
that's the way it goes.
We're already planning on a series too. So
yeah, there's enough listeners. People who are listening are enthusiastic enough, and we're starting to get emails.
Oh shit. We didn't talk about the emails.
We can do that next time. We can do that next week.
Damn.
We'll talk about we can do a special episode just talking about emails. If
yeah,
you want.
our coven meeting.
Yeah. Our coven meeting. We that's what we're gonna call it, right?
Yeah.
Coven meeting. Yeah. So we've gotten emails. We're gonna answer listener emails. So if you have any questions or comments, please email alchemistandacademic@gmail.com, and it may appear on the podcast.
Yes, we will do shout outs if you'd like. We want to know what you want more of, any topics you would like us to discuss. Eventually, we are going to do a Patreon after series 1, and you can sign on, and there will be different options if you want us to do an entire episode on something. We'll have different levels, but that's all coming in the future.
Oh, I mean, if we're gonna set the Patreon up, because one of the most fun things I think is going to be listener engagement. Yeah. Because we have. I'm a little taken aback. Not taken aback, it's the wrong term, but I am enthused by the degree of listenership we have and how global it is.
Yeah.
Like somehow people in all corners of the earth have found this podcast and they're sending in emails. So we want to involve you, and that might mean having you come in on the podcast for 5 or 10 minutes and talk with us. It might mean just addressing your question on the podcast. So it's going to be very, very cool getting your input and engaging with it, rather than just hearing about my stupid problems and how Becca fixed them.
So yeah, we are very much looking forward to that. And I think we're putting a wrap on acupuncture. I'm very happy with the outcome.
I would like to revisit acupuncture in a couple series, maybe series 3 if series 2 does well, where I can give you another target to hit with acupuncture, because this one was very psychological. I would like to do an acupuncture for a physical ailment too, because my body is just broken from hockey and kickboxing. So I kickbox, in case you haven't heard.
Yellow belt,
4 stripes, motherfucker.
So yeah, well, thank you, listeners, as always. Thank you, Kurt, for participating.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I will say this is the one that I'm most enthusiastic about in terms of buying into it. So my pleasure.
So everyone, find an acupuncturist in your area. Also, if you want to email For references for acupuncture, or if you have any questions, I am more than happy to find someone in your area, or if you are near me and you're interested, I do free phone consultations. So all of my information will be linked in the description of the episode.
And if I may jump in, free consultations are very few and far between. When I was going through panic attacks, I was looking for acupuncturists, and everyone wanted at least $100 for even a phone consultation. So take Becca up on that.
I just love it so much. I'll answer all the questions. All right. Well, thank you, listeners. Again, we will see you next week.
And Becca, thank you for penetrating me with needles.
You always got to make it weird. Good night.
Bye, listener.